It's your girl, the Grown Woman Gamer, and today I'm going to talk about my predictions for the upcoming championship series between the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors. I'm going to approach this a little bit more scientifically. We're going to cover 7 different components, and we will compare the Boston Celtics to the Warriors in each of these categories. We will cover defense, rebounding, three-point or long-range shooting, mid-range and finishing around the rim, coaching, and then I have one category which captures experience, poise, leadership, and basketball IQ. And then the last category that we'll touch on is the clutch gene. As far as rebounding goes, if you weigh the abilities of the Warriors against the Celtics, in my opinion, the Celtics are the clear winner in this category. By and large, they're a longer team. They are bringing Robert Williams, Grant Williams, Marcus Smart, who's a decent rebounder in his own right, and of course Al Horford to the table. So I don't believe that the Golden State Warriors have as many rebounding options. So we know Kevon Looney is going to get his. We know Draymond Green, even despite being undersized, is pretty decent as far as putting himself in good position to get rebounds. And Stephen Curry, for what it's worth in this series against the Dallas Mavericks, rebounded pretty well, all things considered. He's a point guard or kind of swing guard between a 1 and 2. But he did get a lot of rebounds in that series. I don't think it will be the same in the Celtics series. The Celtics are just way bigger than the Dallas Mavericks, and the rebounding is going to be largely up to Draymond Green and Kevon Looney. Now, Wiggins and Jordan Poole are pretty athletic. They have Kuminga, who they might utilize in this series given the size of the Celtics. But the Celtics are just in a better position to get both offensive and defensive rebounds in this series. And so when we're talking about rebounding, I would give this particular category to the Celtics. As for three-point shooting, I'm giving this to the Warriors. Obviously, they have one of the best three-point shooters ever in the history of basketball, maybe the best three-point shooter in the history of basketball. While Stephen hasn't given us that performance that we have come to love and expect from him, where he knocks down 12 threes in a game, we know that the man is capable of this. And the Golden State Warriors not only have Stephen Curry, but they have Klay Thompson, who can shoot the 3. They have Jordan Poole, who can shoot the 3. If they get Gary Payton II back, he can shoot the 3. Sometimes Andrew Wiggins gets into it. I mean, they just have so many options when it comes to shooting from long range. So you have to give it to them. Now, with that said, the Boston Celtics are coming in right behind them. They have some excellent three-point shooters too, but they are not as reliable as the Golden State Warriors when it comes to shooting long range. And so I will definitely give the Golden State Warriors the edge as far as long range shooting and three-point shooting. But if this does become a three-point shooting contest, it's possible that if the Boston Celtics are in rhythm, that they could knock down a decent amount as well and get one of those big leads that comes from knocking down 45 to 51% of your three-point shots. But in this category, I'm going to squarely obviously give it to the Golden State Warriors. As far as the mid-range game and finishing around the rim, I give the advantage to the Boston Celtics. Al Horford is excellent, finishing under the basket and getting second chance opportunities. Ricky Williams, same thing. I think that he will get offensive rebounds against Kevon Looney, and then he'll be able to put the ball back and finish. We know that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are excellent one-on-one, and the defenders that the Golden State Warriors have, yes, they may slow them down, but we saw what Luka was able to do. And if Luka can do that, trust and believe, if you have the athleticism of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they might have their way with Golden State. Wiggins will try to defend. So will Jordan Poole. They might even have to play Kuminga in this game, or in this series rather. But ultimately, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are going to get to the rack, and they're going to finish, and they're going to get fouled. Hopefully they make their free throws. But I don't see where the Golden State Warriors have as much in their artillery when it comes to the mid-range and finishing around the rim as the Boston Celtics. So I'm going to give this category to the Boston Celtics. Now let's talk defense. This is where it gets a little tricky. While the Golden State Warriors are very undersized and they aren't as fast, they can't jump as high, they're not as athletic, they're just extremely smart on defense. They play hard and they have an effective strategy for playing against teams that are bigger than them. if you watch them during the regular season, one thing that they would do when they had teams that were a lot bigger than them, where they knew that if those teams got into the paint, they would likely lose that battle, is they would be extremely effective at keeping those people out of the paint. They would build a wall around the paint, and they were almost essentially daring the other team to shoot threes or shoot jump shots instead of going into the paint. I think in this series, one of the strategies that Steve Kerr will employ is, let's see if they can beat us shooting. I don't know how long that will be effective against a team like this one, because there are some teams, for example, like the Philadelphia 76ers, where if you have an Embiid and you're pushing Embiid to shoot threes, if he decides to go with that, they're probably not going to win. But when you have a team like Boston, where if you give up threes and mid-range jump shots to Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, even Grant Williams, Pritchard, these guys can knock down shots. So that strategy might not be as effective against the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics defense is probably one of the best that I have seen in the NBA. But the reason to say that they are the favorite rather in this category is that the Golden State Warriors, they're right there with them. But the assets or the reason why they're so good is different than the reason why the Celtics are so good on defense. The Celtics are great on defense because of athleticism, physicality. There's a level of intelligence. We also know that they have the Defensive Player of the Year, but it's really just because they're a young group of guys who can still get down in that defensive stance and still have the energy to play you on the offensive side. The question in this series will be whether or not this particular team, the Golden State Warriors, can do that, defend this longer, stronger team, and then still have the energy to be effective on the offensive side of the basketball. But it's hard for me to give them the advantage, although I think that their tool or their strength as far as defensive prowess really comes from the intelligence that and the strategic way that they approach defense. But seeing what I've seen throughout this postseason, I'm actually going to go with the Celtics as far as having the advantage when it comes to defense, just because I don't see where any amount of intelligence is going to overcome the physical ability and the length of Al Horford, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. Let's talk a little bit about coaching. Before I get into which team I think has the advantage, I just want to preface this by saying I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ime Udoka and Steve Kerr, and I'm not making any assumptions about either of these gentlemen's intelligence or ability as a coach. Both of them have a significant amount of experience, and I just respect and am often amazed at the adjustments that they're able to make, the way that they're able to inspire their team, the way that they're able to get productivity out of players that on other teams might not have as much of an opportunity to shine. And they have both done a tremendous job this year in their own right. With that said, it's obvious that you have to give the advantage to Steve Kerr, if only because he's done it 3 times before. He's got his team to the NBA championship 6 of the last 8 years. Ime Udoka is a rookie coach. This is not his first time in this situation. He was sitting next to Greg Popovich for years. But there's no way that you can learn how to win an NBA championship as well as you can learn by actually going through the process of winning an NBA championship. And being able to do it over and over and over again obviously is going to prepare you for what may come, both in terms of what players may face and how to help them to get through that successfully, the fast-paced nature of everything, there's so many different elements, and going through it is one of the best ways to learn. That's with anything. So you have to give the advantage to Steve Kerr. Although Ime Udoka is a brilliant young coach, he's done a tremendous job. He has a way with this group of guys. I'm sure he'll be prepared to meet whatever challenges may come. But with respect to what Steve Kerr has already accomplished with this team, I have to give the coaching advantage to Steve Kerr. And by the way, let me just add that what we've seen Steve Kerr do in terms of making certain decisions depending on who they're playing tells you that he's going to bring some interesting choice out of his bag of tricks this time around too. And I'm very curious to see what he'll do against the Celtics. That ties right into our next category, which I'm just lumping kind of together as experience, poise, leadership, and basketball IQ. Again, this is another obvious category. This should go to the Golden State Warriors. They have Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. That's their foundational core. All three of these guys have won several times over, have been in this situation several times over. They have more experience playing in the NBA. They have more experience playing in these types of high pressure, high intensity situations. There are a lot of different circumstances and scenarios that they've already faced. They know what it's like to be down. They know what it's like to be up. They understand the mental aspect of trying to win a 7-game series and win an NBA championship. And Stephen Curry is also just one of the most poised superstars that I've ever seen. I think Kobe Bryant observed this about him as well. He just doesn't have, he's like emotional highs and lows. He's a very even-tempered guy, and he's evolved a lot, especially as he gets older, to, like I said, back up and allow other players to do well and thrive in order to get this team across the finish line. But he knows how to turn it on too when he has to kind of take over games and knock down shots. So I definitely give the leadership aspect, the poise aspect, the experience aspect, and just the basketball IQ, basketball wisdom category to the Golden State Warriors, hands down. I'm doubling down on that because I've seen the Boston Celtics make these really youthful errors in judgment, and they have these mental lapses that are extremely frustrating for me to watch. I can't imagine what Ime Udoka is going through. Sometimes they just do things that just honestly don't make sense. I think with time that will come, but this is like Boston Celtics, they're a young team. You can't expect them to be at the level of a Stephen Curry or Klay Thompson or Draymond Green because these guys are older and honestly have just been in the league longer and have been through it more times. So like I said, I'm giving this category squarely to the Golden State Warriors. So at this point, the Golden State Warriors and the Celtics are tied up 3-3. The last category that we're going to address that typically will send any team over the top is the clutch gene. And before I give you my answer for this, let me just say that any one of the categories that we just talked about could be weighted more heavily in any individual game, leading to one team having a disproportionate advantage or win against the other. For example, if your three-point shooting is out of this world and your team is shooting over 50%, you might have a lopsided win where you end the game 20 points over the other team. Or on the opposite side of the coin, you could have a defensive game that's so outstanding that the game is so low scoring that you win that game. Or it could be coaching, or it could just be experience and basketball IQ because one team is turning the ball over like crazy and the other team is managing the basketball extremely well. So it's not that in every single game, each of these categories will factor in equally. It's just that this last category is the one that turns out to be the most important in a close game. And like I said, right now, these two teams, as far as these 7 categories, they're even 3-3, with the Golden State Warriors having advantage in some of the softer skills and the Boston Celtics having the advantage in some of the skills that are tied more to athleticism and physicality. With the clutch gene, there's a combination of factors that are relevant. Number one, the last 2 minutes to 3 minutes of any close game will come down in many cases to coaching. It also comes down to good decision making. It also comes down to physical ability and kind of an awareness of what your ability is and the ability to execute on that very precisely. And it does come down to managing the basketball. But there could also be an end-game situation where there's one player who just takes over. We've seen LeBron James do this. We've seen Giannis do it. We've seen Stephen Curry do it. We've seen Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson do it. It could come down to one guy just doing something great in those last 3 minutes that's career defining. So it's kind of intangible and flexible and fleeting and transient, the potential opportunity in any close game scenario. With that said, I have to be honest and say that I'm torn on this one. I've seen the Boston Celtics exert their physical prowess, speed, strength, and ability to finish around the rim in close game situations. I've also seen the Golden State Warriors out-coach other teams. That goes to Steve Kerr's ability as a coach, and just start knocking down shots at the end of the game to make it super challenging for a team to catch up with them, especially if they're not shooting threes the way the Golden State is shooting threes. My gut tells me that this category should go to the Golden State Warriors, just because a lot of times, like I said, in these late game situations, 8 times out of 10, it's going to come down to coaching, poise, experience, leadership, and your ability to make good decisions in a kind of high pressure, intense situation. And I've seen the Boston Celtics get frazzled in these moments. And I just don't 100% trust them to finish in games like this. So that puts the Golden State Warriors ahead 4 categories to 3. But even with that said, because I like to stand 10 toes down on my predictions, I'm going to go against what the analytics will tell you. And I'm going to choose the Boston Celtics to win this series 4 games to 3. If they do win, I think the series will go 7 games, like some of their previous series against really good teams. If the Golden State Warriors win, which is what could happen, I'll just eat that. But I really believe in the Celtics team. I see something in them that is intangible. Jason Tatum is having that evolution that really great players have right before our very eyes. And when he understands and feels that moment, especially in the first game, the opportunity that's in front of him, all the work that was put in, I think we're going to see him evolve, and we're going to see him transform into one of the definitive players of his generation. While the Golden State Warriors have been here before, we've seen that transformation in some of their players. I just think this is his moment, and I believe in him, and I think he is going to show us something that we have not seen before. And I think that they have the buy-in of all of the guys on their team, and they have a coach who's willing to do what it takes to support them in getting this. And I just believe in this team, and I'm going to choose them to win the series in spite of what most basketball analysts would say, which is that the Golden State Warriors have an advantage for the obvious reasons that are stated ad nauseum in this video. So let me know what your thoughts are. What are your predictions for this series? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening to this video. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys, and I'm out.